Namaskar viewers, hello and welcome to Sansad TV. I'm Tina Jha, you're watching Perspective. Prime Minister Narendra Modi was in Japan from 29th to 30th of August for the 15th India-Japan Annual Summit. He held delegation-level talks with his Japanese counterpart, Prime Minister Ishiba Shigeru, where the two leaders recalled the deep civilizational bonds, shared values and common strategic outlook that have long defined this partnership. Together, they unveiled a joint vision for the next decade, a roadmap built on 8 key pillars spanning economic partnership, mobility, technology, health, ecology, and people-to-people ties. The visit produced one of the most ambitious outcomes in recent years: a joint declaration on security cooperation, new frameworks in digital innovation, clean energy, critical minerals and space exploration, and importantly, Japan's commitment of 10 trillion yen in private investment in India over the next decade, a powerful vote of confidence in India's growth story. Equally significant, both sides announced an action plan for the exchange of 500,000 people in 5 years, including 50,000 skilled Indian professionals moving to Japan, putting people at the heart of this partnership. So on the show today, we focus on how these outcomes can reshape the trajectory of India-Japan ties in the decade ahead. To discuss this, we are joined by 3 distinguished guests. Let me begin by introducing them to you. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome on this edition of Perspective, Ambassador Deepa Gopalan Vadhva. She served as the Ambassador of India to Japan from 2012 to 2015. Ambassador, welcome to Sansad TV. What an absolute pleasure to have you with us on this edition of Perspective. Also delighted to welcome Mr. Bharat Joshi, Co-Chairman, CII Japan Committee, and Professor Ranjana Mukhopadhyay, Professor of Japanese Studies, Delhi University. Thank you, Mr. Joshi and Professor, for joining us on the program as well. So, Ambassador, let's begin this conversation today with you. The 15th India-Japan Annual Summit joint statement, we saw how it spans a remarkably wide canvas, touching defense and technology to talent, mobility and global governance. As someone who's also played a significant part in this journey of India-Japan friendship that we are discussing today, let's begin first by talking about the evolving character of the India-Japan relations in context of the just concluded 15th India-Japan Annual Summit.
Thank you very much. Very happy to be on the show. As you just mentioned, it's the 15th summit. So this is really part of a continuum. It's part of a deepening of the relationship, which really started in 2000. And about 2006, we started this institution of annual summits, which meant that our prime ministers met every year. And this is part of those series of those summits. And I think this is an institution we have with very few countries, maybe Russia, Japan, and maybe France. And this shows the importance of Japan in our relationship. These summits give us an opportunity to review the relationship, to look at new areas, how to widen, how to deepen the relationship. And more importantly, it sits at the top of a very multi-layered structure of cooperation and platforms across various subjects, which all sort of come together during the summit, which is why when you have a joint statement, you find that it really, in terms of expanse, it covers so many things, and it sets the way and the way forward, not only till the next summit, but this time there's also been a vision statement, which actually tells us for the next decade what the priorities of our relationship are going to be.
Professor, as you know, the ambassador said, it's an annual summit, and of course the joint statement spans across every sector. But this time, in the list of outcomes, we're seeing several substantial agreements and covering critical areas. Particularly, the joint vision for the next decade lays out 8 key pillars of cooperation, which includes economic partnership and economic security, which is being talked about quite a lot since the day it has happened. Tell us about how important is the India-Japan cooperation, especially in the field of economic security and given the challenging geopolitical scenario.
Yeah, actually, it's very interesting. If you look at just before our Honorable Prime Minister Modi, he departed, he actually inaugurated the e-vehicles from the factories in the Gujarat.
Right.
And that also was very important because we have now become an exporter of, and we sent to all over the world.
More than 100 countries, right?
Yeah, more than 100 countries. And also it is called Tara, the e-vehicle, it's a sixth generation, it's called Tara. And it's also that it also shows, actually it was a sort of shows the strength with which India and Japan are actually looking at each other. They are going to invest somewhere around, I think, 70,000 crore in next 6 years. The Maruti, I'm just talking Maruti Suzuki, and in developing various plants. So this was one major starter, and also the fact that he was the Prime Minister, along with the Japanese Prime Minister, PM Modi, visited in a Shinkansen to Miyagi to go to this semiconductor factory. That also, in a way, shows how there's a very strong developing the economic relationship. Not only in it is now going much beyond to the next generation economic ties that we are looking at. So e-vehicles, then also they're looking at low carbon technology. There's been agreement on low carbon technology. Then also semiconductors. Now we all should know that these are all very important things which are actually going to be a very prime elements of driving our economy in the next 10 to 20, 30 years. So from that perspective, we are really looking at our economic security is very important. It is just not when we talk of economic security, it's also the trade, which we saw during the COVID, how like all this, how securing our supply chain became very important. And this is here where we are trying to diversify our basket. And we are also trying to build up on stronger relationships that exist with some other country. So it is not like the countries where we already have a very strong economic tie, and we're furthering by going to the next generation technology that's going to come in.
Clearly,
Also,
another strong signal of how our foreign policy is governed solely by the interest of the country, by the interest of the people in this country. Since you spoke about the economic partnership, let me take a related question to Mr. Joshi. So the bigger announcement, Mr. Joshi, has been that Japan is going to invest 10 trillion yen in private investment in our country. From an industry perspective, how significant and timely is this announcement? What also does this mean for industry confidence in India?
I think this is enormously significant, especially, I mean, in any ways, this 10 trillion yen is about 70 billion US dollars.
Right.
So it's not a small amount in any times. But in these current times of global economic headwinds, I think it especially is significant for us all. Now, on top of this, if you also consider the uncertainties around global trade and regional trade, this also sends a very strong message to everybody, including, to your question, Indian industry. So it's a real, boost or, of confidence for Indian industry. Also, in some ways, we're doubling down on our regional partnerships with countries such as Australia, because if you read some of the fine print, also sectors such as semiconductors and critical technologies and critical minerals have been earmarked. Now, all of this also ties in really well and quite directly with India's green transformation, digital India, semiconductors, batteries, and so on. So I think for all of these reasons, it's incredibly important. And just a point from the earlier panelist around supply chains, there's also this initiative of SCRI, or Supply Chain Resilience Initiative, among 3 countries, India, Japan, and Australia. So this also aligns really well with a lot of those other initiatives. But the bilateral, I think, will be the bedrock of this.
So the joint declaration on security cooperation is another big elevation in the India-Japan ties, and especially in context of our defense partnership. How transformative, according to you, is this step, particularly against the backdrop of the Indo-Pacific tensions and the geopolitical conflict that we are witnessing in different parts of the world?
Well, this declaration on defense cooperation, the first one really was signed in 2008. And what has happened is that there has been a lot of progress since then. In 2008, our defense cooperation was virtually negligible. What we are doing through this new declaration that has, which was I think, agreed upon during the last summit, this recent summit, is to factor in all the developments that have happened since 2008 to now. And fundamentally, what are these? We've seen a much, much closer defense and security relationship than I think either side ever envisaged. For example, if you look now, we have all the three arms of our military. We have joint exercises. And these joint exercises are really growing in both sophistication, they're more comprehensive now. We're looking at technology. We have now agreements on defense equipment and on cooperation in the sense of development, production of defense equipment. We have a logistics agreement. There has been so much happening in the area of defense. And I think what we tried to do in a way to relook at this joint declaration that we had of 2008 is to really factor in what has happened now. And a lot of this declaration, if you read through it, there's a lot of focus on the Indo-Pacific. I mean, we are cooperating in the Indo-Pacific in the true, I think, the true remit of the Indo-Pacific. So we're looking at not only, the South China Sea, not only the areas to the east of India, but all the way to the shores of Africa. And, the closer that our naval cooperation, particularly our naval cooperation and our Coast Guard cooperation, has been extremely growing at a very, very fast pace. And I think this is important for the security of the sea lanes, the security of navigation. And both of us, who talked about economic security earlier, I think the economic security of both countries is very much linked in a way to our military cooperation in making sure that the sea lanes are free to carry on trade.
Professor, the joint declaration on security cooperation particularly signals greater strategic trust between India and Japan. But how important is it in the years to come, given the complexities in the geopolitical scenario, that Japan sees India as a reliable partner for peace and stability, mainly in the Indo-Pacific, because that is what concerns this country?
Yeah, sure. I mean, earlier we have had defense ties with Japan, and we have had joint military exercises, but we have always said it is for humanitarian relief or for disaster management. But now I think they're increasingly going beyond that, and investment and innovation have become a very important aspect of these economic ties. It is not just military exercises; it's also we are purchasing. I mean, having economic ties through military purchases, which is going to be a very important field in future, because as even for Japan, it has to come out of that US security umbrella, and gradually it has to diversify on its to various other countries, and also it has to go for its own defense arrangements independent of the US umbrella. I mean, not denying that, but going beyond that. And where Indo-Pacific remains, the region remains very important and very crucial, as Mr. Wadhwa said, because most of the sea routes need to be secured. And that is where India plays a very important role. And it is the only country in the South Asia which can ensure that the sea routes are safe and secure. And that is a role which nobody can deny to India. So that is one thing. The further is our wide range of maritime cooperation which is coming up. It is wide-ranging. It is coastal cooperation. It is defense cooperation. So there is a lot to look into this, because ultimately Japan is an island country, and we are also a peninsular country. We also have almost two sides of peninsula. So for us, with China's expansion, and with neighbors like Sri Lanka, or Bangladesh, where we find China's footprints are growing, it is obviously it is very important. These maritime alliances come up, and they come up soon. So I think the focus is very important, and very strategically, it is very important how the strategic partnership is evolving. That is very interesting, and that is where a lot of our Southeast Asia as well as South Asia's future security concerns are going to be.
Absolutely. So from economic cooperation, economic security, strategic partnership, let's move to our technological cooperation and the areas of innovation, the futuristic technologies in which how we are engaging with each other. Mr. Joshi, the India-Japan Digital Partnership 2.0 and the AI initiative are examples of how we've moved from traditional sectors to now engaging in frontier technologies. Tell us about how ready our Indian industry is to collaborate with Japanese counterparts in high-tech and emerging sectors, because with Japan, we recall we've had a very solid cooperation on the technological front. But as technology is advancing with each passing day, how are we also taking that partnership to another level?
I think this is also sort of a match made in heaven. If you look at the skills of both India and Japan, Japan has been for the longest time a leader in hardware and some of the really deep tech. And India, on the other hand, has been recognized globally as a leader in software. And now in terms of data and AI, not just because, but especially because of the huge scale and diversity of data from the Indian economy, our AI companies are very well poised to become some of the world leaders in their own right. So I think this is a very timely initiative. And in our own company, for example, we've been working with NEC for a long time. And again, around data. So there are precedents in this area as well. And also in aligned areas, if you look at the other upcoming areas, semiconductor, as I mentioned before, is a big one. If you look at the software side, health tech. Now, this is where both countries have a great amount to gain. Japan, as we know, has an aging population. So there is a certain sort of a health tech requirement, which India can really help address. On the other hand, India, because of our scale, we've been using digital and health tech for other reasons as well. And it really helps our physical infrastructure. In addition, mobility. So we've mentioned EV, but there are many other areas we can go with that as well. Critical minerals and critical technology as well, because the more digital we become, the more we'll need to work with partners. Supply chains, I think, for all of this will remain at the heart of it, because supply chains will be seen, and you've mentioned 2 or 3 times the term economic security, so I'll just spend maybe half a minute on that. So supply chain resilience, reliability, flexibility, I think will remain very important issues for the foreseeable future. And that's where partnerships become important. And when you're looking at supply chains, what you're looking at essentially are two things: logistics and manufacturing. Now, in both, India is a proven, reliable, robust partner, and both for bilateral and for other minilaterals or other regional groupings, India and Japan can work very strongly together. Looking at some of the other areas, now we've mentioned this 10 trillion yen or $70 billion commitment. This, as I understand, is investment. Now, let's not forget that in addition to this, a lot of debt funding continues to flow. Just today or yesterday, I saw in the press, I'm in Japan right now, so in the press I saw over here, JBIC, Japan Bank of International Cooperation's commitment to co-finance something like $400 million single project in Assam of biofuel, bamboo biofuel. Now, this for the world could be, quite instructional, because I'm not sure how many, $500 million projects we have of bamboo biofuel. So I think there's a lot going on, and a lot more will happen, both in terms of, cyberspace and the real space.
Okay, when it comes to Japan, there are so many areas in which we've already done so much, but there's so much potential that's still being explored. Ambassador, another critical aspect that grabbed headlines among the list of outcomes was the leaders unveiling a roadmap for 5 lakh personnel exchanges in the next 5 years, and which includes 50,000 skilled Indian professionals in Japan. Mr. Joshi spoke about an aging population in Japan. Contrary to that, India has that advantage of demographic dividend. How significant do you think that kind of exchange will be towards further deepening the people-to-people ties?
Well, indeed, and Bharat is very right, because I think among the complementarities that there are in our two economies, one very important point has really been demography, because they do have a growing population, we have a very young population, and this particular agreement goes beyond, of course, the 50,000 personnel that you're looking to go to work in Japan. Here you're looking at both, skilled and semi-skilled people. There are certain programs which Japan already has, and we have sent a couple of thousand people under these programs. So what is there is that they learn the language, they have a certain amount of training, and then they're able to go and work on shop floors. And some of them, of course, stay on for a while. They're also there in areas such as care for the aged, because there's an aging population. But I think a big demand really is for our engineers, for IT engineers and so on. And therefore, there's a huge threshold, a very high threshold of 50,000 people. But I think what has caught eyeballs is really the 5 lakh number. Right. And, it was surprising to everybody. But I think what this really means is that, we're two countries are very close. We have a strategic global and, a partnership which has been there for now since really from 2000, as I said. It's a special global and strategic partnership now. What does all this mean? This means that, we cooperate in different areas. But I personally, having dealt with Japan for a long time, I still feel that there's an information deficit between the two of us. Mm-hmm. And that is, our people have generally a very positive perception of each other. If you ask an Indian about Japan or Japanese, it's always a very positive reaction, as it is also in Japan. But there is really not enough knowledge about each other. And I think this, when you talk about these 500,000 people, it's about people traveling more, getting to know each other, really getting to lay the foundations of that relationship where people understand each other, and and that is what it is. So perhaps, as I see it, this also includes a lot of tourism. The potential for tourism, I think tourism from India to Japan certainly has grown hugely, but I think the other way too. And students, one of the things that really surprised me about students was that there were more students in Japan from Bangladesh and from Nepal than they were from India. I think there should be far more student exchanges between our two countries. So this is really a very, very important development, that we are looking at figures, we're looking at targets, and trying to see that our people get to know each other better. And of course, then there are opportunities certainly for skilled and semi-skilled Indians to have jobs in Japan, and also bring back those skills to India. So it is not only that these people get skilled and work in Japan, but the Japanese companies that come into India, they would be very happy to have people, who know the Japanese language and know Japanese management standards and so on, and to be able to hire them in India. So huge potential for employment.
Ambassador, since you mentioned that, it leads me to the next question. Professor, perhaps I would like to understand from you that quite often when we look at the list of outcomes, the MOUs on culture, the MOUs on people-to-people linkages, the MOUs on getting to know each other better do not grab many headlines. Even in this case, India, Japan, the manner in which the economic investment and the security partnership was played out, not as much was spoken about the cultural MOUs, the museum collaborations that have also happened. They may sound symbolic, but do you see these kind of exchanges, these kind of collaborations adding perhaps that extra layer, something which is missing in creating that everyday connection, strengthening the trust between people and the societies?
Yes, I think people-to-people connections, and particularly the cultural diplomacy, is a very integral part of any relationship between any two countries. And particularly since we are living in an era of information, and particularly we have a lot of non-formal informations flow through social media, through various other means, where people are already exposed to various cultural aspects of each other's countries. So for like Bollywood being extremely popular in Japan, or we are knowing so much about we know so much about the food culture, the pop culture, the manga, animation of Japan. So, and particularly among the younger generations, it is not so much like, I'll give you a very simple example. Whenever I ask a very simple question to my students, like why do they want to work on Japan? Japan, hardly people say it is because of some diplomatic relationship or economic this thing. Mostly people, the initiation is through popular culture, through manga and animation. And that's what actually is the first attraction for the younger generation. So it is very important. Like if you know, even during this current visit by Prime Minister Modi, he was presented a Dharma doll. And many few people, the Dharma doll is such a popular icon in Japan as a cultural asset of Japan. And but very few people know that it was Bodhidharma, an Indian monk, after whom that Dharma doll has been modeled. Almost every house, like on the usually they buy on the 1st of January, they buy a Dharma doll. They paint one eye of it, and when at the end of the year, if their goal or any purpose has been fulfilled, they go and paint the other eye. So it is almost everywhere in offices, in schools, or in homes you find it. But very few people actually know the story behind it. So it is very important that we bring this out, this cultural aspect comes out. And coming to the previous question about human resource exchange, earlier when many years back when we were going to Japan to study, there were very few scholarships available. Now lately we have this Sakura Science program where science students from the school level till the university level are taken to Japan to study in various institutions and in Japan. And now since last year it has become JST, Japan Science Technology Lotus program. So Lotus program actually only focuses on India. They are trying to get Indian people from all the younger talents from India and take them to Japan, train them in various industries in Japan so that in future they are there to work in Japan.
But since you spoke about the human resource exchange and the training, let me also get in Mr. Joshi's perspective on what role can the Indian industry play, or maybe it's already doing that, in skilling talent to meet the Japanese requirements, because as we've discussed, they need skilled workforce. India fortunately has plenty. So how can we skill or upskill our youngsters in a manner that fulfill the requirement of the Japanese?
So I think in some ways, industry has been the primary bridge for people-to-people exchanges between our two countries. Unfortunately, as we've discussed, at the level of students and tourism, it remains a bit wanting. However, on the industrial and commercial side, we do see a lot more exchange. Sadly or fortunately, whatever, it's sort of on the more senior side. So the heads of company normally are Japanese. What I'd like to see is a lot more younger professionals come to India, live in India. I'd like to see also younger students come and live in India. I think we need a lot more interaction on the inbound as Indians. And I think Ambassador Wadhwa hit the nail on the head. And in some slightly different words, I think this is a challenge with India literacy in Japan. So how do we really inform in a very deliberate manner? Because, I think it's frankly borderline frightening if we sort of abdicate this India literacy and leave it to social media alone. Right. I think we should take charge of it. We should take charge as industry, as citizens, and as government. Some governments, for instance, and Ambassador Wadhwa has been involved in some of these. Australia, for example, has a very structured and deliberate India literacy program of their own, and for the same reason. So I think on both sides this is required, but it should be done, and I think it'll just fit in so well with all these initiatives we've talked about. Language, I think, will remain for some time perhaps one challenge to address. And while it's a challenge, I think it's also a great opportunity because Japanese is a beautiful language. The structure of Japanese is very similar to Indian languages. So for Indians to learn Japanese and vice versa, I think that's also something to be very much encouraged. And I think with technology, again, we can bridge some of these small differences as well.
Okay, so in the wake of these suggestions that Mr. Joshi is making, Ambassador, I'll take one last question from you. Looking ahead to the 75th anniversary of India-Japan diplomatic relations in 2027, what do you hope and also expect both countries to achieve by then to, in a manner, truly unlock the full potential of this beautiful friendship that has evolved over years?
Yes, I think it's a wonderful opportunity really to bridge this, what I call the information deficit. There's so many lovely stories about both our countries that nobody really knows. It's of course a Buddhism connect, but, we just heard Professor talking about Bodhidharma. Bodhidharma actually had gone to China, but these Dharma dolls are there in Japan. But there was a Bodhisena who went in the 7th century. He went to 6th or 7th century. He went to Nara, and one of the biggest statues that there is of the Buddha there, the eye-opening ceremony was done by him. There are so many connections. The script that the phonetic script that the Japanese use borrows from Sanskrit. And when you come later into our relationship, much later, the Meiji Reformation and onwards, there was a period of really, very intense interaction between the two of us, and particularly in the years just leading to the war. So these stories need to be told. I must tell you one of the most charming stories, and I wish we could do a series of TV programs, or you have books, you have publications, and have probably little vignettes on social media. The fact that the word rickshaw, we all Indians believe that rickshaw belongs to us. Rickshaw actually was brought in by Mitsui, the Japanese company, to India at the end of the 19th century or the beginning of the 20th century, and became so much part of India. So there's so many lovely stories that are there. We have got to know more about each other. And I think this 75th anniversary will be a time to look back and also look forward as to what we can do together. I think it's a huge opportunity.
Sure, you're right. And the manner in which we've built our relationship with Japan, not just on trust and common outlook, but also with a vision, the vision which talks about progress and prosperity for the people. The people are at the heart of this relationship. There's so much that can still be done. Perhaps in the next 2 years, our relationship would have added another new chapter in its beautiful journey, how the friendship has blossomed. But for now, we'll have to wrap up the conversation. It's been an absolute pleasure to have the three of you join us on the program, share your thoughts, views with us and our viewers, and how substantial this visit of the Prime Minister to Japan has been, and some of the most remarkable outcomes that this visit has also achieved in terms of elevating the India-Japan ties. That's a wrap on this edition of Perspective, viewers. Thank you very much for your time as well.
To watch more programs of Sansad TV, subscribe to our YouTube channel and don't forget to like and share them.